Hello, everyone. My name is Phyllis Hakeem, and I'm the program director for the Reading and Literacy Instruction programs at Bay Path University. I'm thrilled to announce that I will be hosting 3 sessions to bring awareness to dyslexia this month. My guest during these sessions is a graduate of our programs, a mother of a child with dyslexia, a homeschooler, and a fierce advocate for all learners who struggle with learning to read, reading for pleasure, and reading for deep comprehension. Let's give a warm welcome to Krista Conway. So, Krista, thank you for being here. And I'd like you to please share with us how and why you enrolled in your program of study here at Bay Path University.
Well, this is my second go around at doing something with myself, right? So my undergrad is not in education, not in reading literacy, nothing along those lines. So I spent 25 years ish as an entrepreneur, a homeschool mom, and that's really where I came into this program. We ended up homeschooling our kids. So we've been homeschooling for a while. In 2019, my homeschool kids decided they wanted to try public school again. And at this point, we had spent a lot of time trying to figure out why our kid wasn't, or one of our sons wasn't reading. And he had gone to public school. He had gone through kindergarten twice, gone through first grade, second grade, third grade. By the time we got to third grade, we knew that there was something. We had tried all of these different programs that are available out there. Nothing had worked for him. And so we enrolled them in school in 2019, and I went right away and I said, listen, we can't get him to read. He's third grade by this point, and we don't know what to do. So just knowing coming into the third grade that he can't read, can you be sure to help him? And they're like, oh yeah. So we had an IEP meeting 3 days before COVID closed the school in March of 2020. And they told us that basically he had made no progress and that they didn't really know if he would, considering at that point, I don't think they knew that the school was going to close, but there was rumors. And so about 2 weeks after the school closed, I got an anonymous letter in the mail. And the letter said, we can't help your son because I think that he's dyslexic, but they would never put that on his IEP. And that really made me into an advocate pretty much overnight, because we found an OG tutor for him, and within 6 months he was reading. By this time he's 11 years old. By the time he actually starts reading, he's 11 years old. So fast forward 6 months, a year, and it was the first time, after all those years of education, after all the years of me working with him, after all the years of paying other people to be involved with him, that we kind of had a term to put with dyslexia. We didn't know what that was. We never heard that word before. And so, so fast forward to 22, I think it was, I joined Bay Path. By that time, I was a homeschool advocate because I had seen a lot of curriculums weren't really great for kids that were dyslexic. And so that's how I landed here, really, is just being so dug into the homeschool community and realizing that if you are a homeschooler and your child just happens to be dyslexic, there's not a lot of resources for you. There's some, but there's not a lot. And so that's basically how I ended up here.
And that's why I invited you, because you have so many voices that you can share, right, Krista? You can share as a mom, you can share as an advocate, but also the homeschool population. We often talk about public schools, but there's a huge population of people that you serve as an advocate. And then the voice of a graduate, that has gone through our program. And you had mentioned OG. So for people who don't know what OG is, that's the Orton Gillingham approach. It isn't a program, it is an approach. And we do have 3 courses dedicated to really making sure that our students are trained by a fellow of the Orton Gillingham Academy here at Bay Path University. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here so everyone can see. We kind of have a PowerPoint just to guide our conversation today, not really to read from. And let me share. And you can see that now, right, Krista? Okay. And so, what I'd like to do is start by sharing with everyone that we have to be aware of multiple definitions and bias out there when it comes to the word dyslexia. Too many times we hear dyslexia and we think, people are in their kitchens and they're talking about dyslexia and they have their own ideas of what it means and based on their experiences, right? As family members or someone in their family may have had that term thrown out there, but really we want to make sure we have caution with that. So, right now, as we speak, the definition that's been most used in research is out for public comment because there are some ideas about revising that. But for the purposes of dyslexia awareness right now, we're using the dyslexia, the one by Sally Shaywitz in the International Dyslexia Association. It's a specific learning disability, neurobiological in origin, characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition, by poor spelling and decoding, typically resulting from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities, and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. It's so important that we really dispel some of the myths. I also like to quote Sally Shaywitz. She's one of the leading researchers in dyslexia. She wrote a wonderful book. It's in its second edition called Overcoming Dyslexia. Really friendly language. I recommend that book highly to parents.
Yes.
She's kind of breaking this down a little more. It involves a weakness in that phonological, that speech sound aspect of language. And it causes difficulty decoding, and I would say also encoding, which is spelling, right? Words. Some people may also have deficits in the orthographic processing. Well, what is that? It's the visual recognition of spelling patterns, the perception of those patterns. That affects fluency, and spelling is almost always affected. And together, these challenges may impact comprehension. And so I gave a really good reference there. So, guidance. In the past, as you just experienced and shared with us, the label of specific learning disability in reading used on most IEPs never referenced the word dyslexia.
Yeah.
But the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, they sent out what we familiarly call the Dear Colleague letter, October 2015. That's like 10 years old. But it emphasized there's nothing in the IDA that would prohibit the use of the term dyslexia, dyscalculia, that's difficulty with numbers and math, and dysgraphia, the orthographic writing, in IDA evaluations, eligibility determinations, or documents. So there you go, Krista. It's been there since 2015.
Yep. And they will avoid using those terms at all costs, it seems.
And the cost goes to the child, right? That's where the cost is. So we have too many myths. And when we talked about sharing together on this part one, truth, please. So I'm going to let you talk about, from the perspective of a parent, myth number one. Dyslexia means reversing letters, like writing B as D.
Yeah. So I want to just preface by saying that these myths abound. If you are a homeschool mom, if you are just a regular, you have your kids in public school, you see these myths popping up. If you are searching for reasons why your kid can't spell, can't read, you are going to eventually see these somewhere. They're written everywhere. So that's why we're here on this session number one, getting the myths out of the way right from the start. Okay. So these dyslexia does not mean, like, if your child is reversing B and D, P and Q, that doesn't mean that that is not a symptom of dyslexia, I should say. Letter reversals are common in early writers, and it's not unique to dyslexia. I mean, I work with dyslexic kids every day, and we're really familiar with the bed, you know. Oh, and I think I just went dark here. Do you see me? There I am. I'm back. Dyslexia is primarily about difficulties with accurate and fluent word recognition, spelling, and decoding, which also impacts vocabulary fluency and comprehension down the road. So that B and D reversal does not always mean dyslexia.
Thank you, Krista. And it's so important that we still have, we still have instruction, like you brought up the bed, right? The B and the D, we have a B and D walking with us all the time. We still bring in that instruction when we need to, but it's appropriate developmentally for kindergarten and first grade students to have some struggles with the transcription, right, of letters of the alphabet. So thank you for that one. So we're ready to move on. Myth number 2. Dyslexia is a sign of low intelligence.
I honestly feel like this one comes up because people believe that their kid can't read, that there's a sign of low IQ. And that is complete opposite. So you and I have talked about this at length. A lot of the people in our country that are extremely successful business owners are dyslexic. They're creative. They often have average or even above average intelligence. It has nothing to do with intelligence at all.
And I think it's important to talk about the past, right? Because there had been before 2004 what was called the discrepancy model, right? To even qualify for a specific learning disability, you had to be 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So think about that, 2 whole standard deviations away between your IQ and your abilities that you're demonstrating in achievement. Well, that just was a wait to fail model. And so in 2004, we really fought hard to have that change so we could do what is called response to intervention, so that we do not have that discrepancy model driving all of our decisions. So it's really important that, families and parents out there understand that we're always working to make sure that students get the targeted supports that they need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also want to add, I don't think that I want to disassociate that dyslexia as a sign of low intelligence. I want those to be disassociated, because I feel like sometimes there's this hesitancy to say that a child is dyslexic because there's this myth out there that it's low intelligence.
Exactly.
And so there's kind of like, we want to make sure that people know that that's not the case with dyslexia. Your child, my child, he is 16. He is 4.0 college student right now in his freshman year of high school, and he didn't read till he was 11. So let's just take that dyslexia and a low intelligence apart.
I love that, Krista. Thank you. We're going on to myth number 3. Children outgrow dyslexia.
Yeah. No, they don't. Unfortunately, this is not something that you outgrow. It's lifelong, and early identification and effective intervention is the key to success here. Children can learn to read and write successfully with dyslexia, and they can definitely overcome some of those challenges, but they're never going to outgrow it.
Well, and I think it's important to add that When we give the proper intervention, this is going to help all children who struggle in some aspect of reading, and also those who most need this instruction, children with dyslexia. And we've talked about this in class so many times. We are not hardwired from birth to read, all
Right.
human persons. And so there is going to come a point for most people where you're going to have a struggle or a challenge. Remember in class when I asked everyone, what do you hate to read? And
Mhm.
what is that one thing that you really struggle with reading? And people will shout out, I hate it when I have to read directions to put something together, or the new laws come in the mail for taxes, and people are like, I don't ever want to read that. And so we all have that, right? And so to know that this isn't a natural phenomenon, that we piggyback on language in
Mhm.
order to be able to read becomes really important when we start in our third session talking about instruction and curriculum and how can parents be excellent partners with their teachers at home. So thank you for that one. All right, we're up to myth 4. Dyslexia is caused by laziness or poor teaching.
It's neurobiological. It is a neurobiological difference in how the brain processes language. So effective instruction and not effort alone makes the difference. Now, there has been a lot of kids come out of first, second grade, and you would never know they're dyslexic because they had amazing instruction, but that is not primarily going to be a result of poor teaching. So it's not laziness or poor teaching. I don't feel um, holy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line, right? That we
Yeah.
we talk about often in our courses. There's the informed instructor, right? Who knows that they have to use direct, explicit, systematic, cumulative, diagnostic instruction. And they have to do this in a manner that is repetitive enough that the students' neurological pathways are going to change. What bothers me is when we blame teachers who never had the proper training. And
Right.
we've talked about this in class, how many teachers of record who are taking our program after 20, 30 years of teaching say to me with tears in their eyes, if I only knew this,
Yeah.
then they really think about a child that they had in their class, right?
Mhm.
And the tears start falling. And then I say, no, no, you're not allowed guilt and shame. You're only allowed some healthy remorse, right?
Yeah.
And then I quote Maya Angelou. And what do I say? Say it with me. When we
Would we know
know
better? We
better,
do
we
better.
do better. Exactly. And so it's not about saying that, you're a lousy teacher. You just are a teacher who may not have been trained properly with what is needed to
Yeah.
serve children with dyslexia or challenges in reading. And that's why we love our program. Go ahead, Krista.
Before you move on to myth number 5, we had a few in the class that were also parents who also had struggling readers and didn't know how to help them. I experienced that a lot with homeschool moms that don't know how to help their kids. And so it's not always that you just don't know how to teach your kid or you're not putting in enough effort. So I don't want parents or teachers to feel that blame because a lot of us weren't taught the right way either. When we were 8, 10 years old, we weren't being taught the correct way either. So we can't really carry something we've never taught. We were never taught when we were kids. We were never taught in our education. We can't really carry that over to teaching if we don't know it's even a thing. So release that guilt.
Yes, release it. And then seek what we know now is a body of research that has been here and replicated to the point where we can say it's seminal, right? And replicated so that we can use that in informing our instruction our assessments, and our curriculum in the future. And that's why we're proud of our program here at Bay Path University, because we've done that hard work, right? And we're constantly looking at our syllabi and really making sure that we're not only giving you the content knowledge, but Krista, I think the joy of our program is our Zoom sessions where we do a lot of the deliberate practice so that we're modeling right away all of the multimodal, multisensory work, all of those strategies with you. And so that you can walk away with some confidence in doing this right away. So you're not waiting until you graduate. You're actually developing your expertise. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, those Zoom sessions, as hard as they seem to be to fit into your schedule, they're what sets the Bay Path University program apart, because not only do we come in together, we work together, we do deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is everything, in my opinion. When we are teaching our kids how to read, we try to go for that multisensory, And so when we are working in these classes and we're doing deliberate practice, you're kind of getting that adult version of the multisensory, where you're doing things and you're going into breakout rooms and working together. You're just enhancing and supporting each other in our learning practices through practice. So it really makes a big difference. It made a huge difference for me. I know that I don't think that I would have learned as much as I did. I'm just thinking back to speech to print, when we were working through spelling analysis. And I'm like, I have never seen this in my life. I don't know how to do this. I'm a homeschool mom, please. And so we come into deliberate practice and we're working through the spelling analysis. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now, when my Facebook friends post their kids' spelling lesson, I don't know how to help my kid. I'm like, oh, well, here's what I see,
Well, and to have those multiple lens, it's more than the five components of reading. When we talk about the language structures that we had a deep dive in your program, all of this builds into what we're going to be talking about later in our third session. How do we then navigate this with curriculum and assessment, right, and instruction? So we're up to our last one for this session, myth number 5. Dyslexia only affects reading.
I it does not only affect reading. And it affects so many different things. It's so broad. Spelling, writing, sometimes oral language, working memory, all those things come into play with dyslexia. And so, I know that you, as a person watching this right now, I know that you've gone through things where it's really, really hard and you're trying to learn something new and your brain feels like it hurts really, really bad because you are learning so much new content or learning how to do a new skill that it literally hurts your brain. And that's what we see a lot with dyslexia. Kids are trying to learn all these things and it really does physically hurt. So it doesn't just affect reading. So when a kid is trying to spell something, your kid comes home from school and they're trying to work on spelling out an essay, or they're trying to write the essay and they're literally sitting there looking at a blank piece of paper and they don't know what to write. Like, the dyslexia goes way beyond just reading. And some of you have probably noticed that with your own child before.
So our next preview, a little preview of our next session, it's going to include what parents should do if they suspect dyslexia. We're going to talk about parent partnerships, how to advocate at school, and we're going to talk a little bit about testing. I'm going to stop share for a moment here and just kind of wrap up this session. So we've addressed the competing definitions, right? And we're making sure that we're not going to promote any of those myths. Any other advice that you can give for this session, Krista, from your voice as a parent and a graduate of our program and also an advocate?
If you are a teacher and you're wanting to learn more about dyslexia, Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz is a must read. You need to have it to properly advocate for the kids that are in your class. If you are a parent, I recommend that you pick it up as well. Let's see, what else can we add to this? If you have never heard of the science of reading, I highly recommend that you do some research and see what it really says. There is so much data out there, and it really has not gotten into our schools fast enough. It's been decades now, right, Phyllis?
Yes.
It's been decades, and
Yes.
it's time for our schools to help our teachers catch up to the science, which is now 25 plus years
And
of.
to dispel the myth around the science of reading right
Yeah.
now, it doesn't equate to phonics. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I'm still hearing, oh, those are those phonics people. We're
Yeah.
talking about all the structures of language. We're talking about semantics and syntax and vocabulary and the huge construct of comprehension.
Yeah.
5 neurological processes in comprehension. Come on, friends.
Yeah.
I mean, phonological and phonemic awareness, you're talking about 12 minutes a day in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. So
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait for our second session. And so I'm going to just give until later, friends.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
There you go.